a lot of bad
Mhm.
things were done to you. But as an adult, you have the power to reel it in
Mhm.
and really create the script that you want for your life. And you cannot put that responsibility on other people. You need to learn how to create boundaries for yourself so that you can feel loved, protected, and most importantly, at peace with yourself. Hi, everyone.
Hi,
Welcome back to Adopted Gals podcast. I am your host, Hawa Zabel.
and I'm your host, Pamata Warfield. Welcome back to another podcast, another episode. This episode is about how to have a relationship with a toxic parent, because I know some of you who have grown up don't necessarily have the best relationship with your parents, like me, whether it's, at an arm's length, or if it's just like, um, me, where I just had to completely cut my parents off, and we thought it would be a good idea to talk about how to have a relationship with toxic parents. And also, if you are an adoptee who wants to tell their story and you feel like it's time for you to bring your story to the forefront, let us know. Make a comment or email us. Our email is in our on our YouTube channel. We would love to have you on here for you to share your story, because we feel like sharing your story helps you heal, and move on and talk about your experience to kind of help you release everything.
Yeah, absolutely. And also for other people who don't want to look down in the description below, it's just adoptedgals@gmail.com, just to make it easy for yourself.
Hmm.
And a quick disclaimer before we do go into our topic today. We want to just say that Adopted Gals is not against adoption. We are actually pro adoption. We're just also pro education,
Hmm.
pro acquiring knowledge, and hearing voices from people who are
Hmm.
actually adopted to better the experience for both the parents and also the children. So we
Exactly.
definitely have some controversial topics, but we
Hmm.
don't come from a space of harm or
Hmm.
negativity. We just want to spread awareness and knowledge because
Hmm.
we've gone through the experience ourselves. So
Hmm.
um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yep.
with that
So
being said,
yeah,
go ahead.
yeah, that's so true. At the end of the day, we love adoption and we want the best for, adoptive parents and the adoptees. And so with this subject, this one hits closer to home for me because I don't have a relationship with my parents anymore. And part of the reason that was is because they were not willing to see me or understand me as a Black girl that, grew up in their household, and to take accountability for the things that they did, whether it was intentional or not. And because it was so long of back and forth, we both got to a place where, like, okay, we just need to separate and kind of go our own ways, because this is the healthiest thing for me, and they felt like that was the healthiest thing for them. And sometimes this stuff like this can be really hard, because at the end of the day, they're your parents and you want to have, a relationship with your parents. I wanted to have a relationship with my parents, and but because there were certain things they were not willing to do, it's like, okay, well, I'm just not, dealing with that anymore. And so when we're talking about this topic, it's not going to be easy. And when we're talking about this topic, we're also going to be talking to the younger, viewers, adoptees who are currently living with their adoptive parents. And we're not, I mean, clearly you can't really go anywhere. So we're going to offer advice as well, on how to create a better relationship with your parents while living with them. So one of the first things that we want to talk about from the perspective of the adoptee, because at the end of the day, you are your own person. You get to choose how you want a relationship. One of the first things is being open-minded and understanding of your parents. And when we say that, try to put yourself in your parents' shoes and try to look at how they look at this whole situation of being adopted, so you can try to understand their perspective, so that way you can like figure out how to meet them where, the best way possible to have a conversation where both sides is hearing, both each other.
Yeah, absolutely. That's very important because I
Hmm.
think a lot of times we focus when it comes to adoptive story, from the adoptive perspective, on like the parents being understanding
Hmm.
because the child's whole life is being disrupted and they're changing environments, and so it's so hard that the parents themselves be more understanding, empathetic, which is definitely
Hmm.
an absolute truth.
Hmm.
But at the same time, like Fatmata is saying, like this is two people that have two different experiences. Both sides of the stories are just as important. And
Hmm.
so there needs to be a lot of empathy from both sides for anything to work out.
Mhm.
And it's easy for the adoptive child to feel like just a complete victim and feel like they need full attention. But
Mhm.
a lot of times these adoptive parents, they're going through this experience for the first time themselves, so
Mhm.
they don't know everything. So you
Mhm.
do need to be more patient and understanding of their plight as well, so that you guys can come together and have better understanding of each other's
Mhm.
experiences.
Exactly. And especially if you are living with a parent when they adopt, their biggest thing was, looking good. They were all up in the, the white saviorism aspect of it, charity and looking good. So we want you to kind of, look through their lenses and try to, meet them in that aspect of approaching the topic and subject.
Yeah.
Um, and also, for those of you who have not, you're grown up like me, you no longer have a relationship with your parents, or you're in the process of trying to figure out a relationship with your parents, and it might, you don't know what's going to happen, and sometimes you do have to come to conclusion of, sometimes you might not just get the empathy and support from them that you need. Like, it's either because they're incapable of giving it to you, or they're just not wanting to. They want to just stay in their own world of looking good and, keeping up that facade and not looking at the real stuff. You have to come to terms with that, which is really hard because you want love. You want to be cared for. For me, I wanted love. I wanted to be cared for in that aspect, to see me as a person and not this like little crutch or shiny thing that makes them look good and stuff like that. So it's a hard pill to swallow, to be able to cut the rope and say they don't see me, and I don't think they're ever going to see me. I need to go away. I need to leave, instead of you continuously staying in a relationship where you are going to continuously be hurt, and making your healing journey even longer, and where you just don't feel like it's not a good thing, and you just have to just cut the rope.
Here's something I want to say about that. This is more so for the adults that are adopted,
Mhm.
because this is a hard pill to kind of swallow.
Mhm.
But at the end of the day, no one really owes you anything,
Mhm.
and you have to have that understanding when you're an adoptee, especially, and building a relationship with your parents. I know
Mhm.
that we were ripped from my biological parents, and naturally, God has given us that maternal um,
Mhm.
love with our parents, that maternal attachment. But when you're an
Mhm.
adult, no one owes you anything.
Yeah.
So I know that, especially if you're going through a hard time having a relationship with your family, there's that part
Mhm.
of you that's like, you are my parent. You're supposed to love me. You're supposed to be here. You're supposed to do that. And
Mhm.
at the end of the day, they're not your biological parent. They have
Mhm.
taken on the role of an adoptive parent, but they're not a
Mhm.
biological parent. And so I think you do yourself more service of having the
Mhm.
mentality of almost like, what they give, I take. You know what I mean? You're gonna have a lot more struggles and problems with the expectation of the
Mhm.
relationship being a certain way. And
Yeah.
when it comes down to it, when you don't have that kind of
Mhm.
relationship with your family, that's when you're gonna beat yourself up. You're gonna
Mhm.
fight them more. But when you have the understanding, this is something I've worked on myself. There,
Mhm.
as an adult with my my adoptive parent, there's ways I wished we connected more. But I also
Mhm.
know I can't they don't owe me anything,
Mhm.
right? What they have done is what they can. They're also human beings.
Mhm.
And for me to
Mhm.
beat myself up and beat them up
Mhm.
does not do me any service. I need to heal
Mhm.
for myself and
Mhm.
find that strength and that love for myself,
Mhm.
because at the end of the day, I cannot get it from my adoptive parent, the type
Mhm.
of maternal love that I am seeking. We had
Mhm.
Carlos on here, and he was talking about how when parents adopt, the moms
Mhm.
tend to go a little bit psycho crazy, trying to come up with these
Mhm.
experimental ways of almost
Trying to
um,
connect to the
trying to
child.
connect and trying to imitate the maternal connection with the child and them, and it never works out because it's just not That's not how
Mhm.
God meant it to be, you know? And so as an
Mhm.
adult, you just have to have that in the back of your mind. You kind of get what you get and you heal for yourself, you know?
Yeah.
And I think Julie kind of talked about that. It's like, like I don't expect anything from my parents at this point.
Mhm.
We talk about what we talk about, we keep it loose and casual, but I know I'm not going to get what I was craving as a child from them. And that's just the reality of it all. And once you come into terms with that and you are
Mhm.
honest with yourself and you
Mhm.
build that relationship with yourself, I think that's where healing starts to come in.
Mhm.
And you see your
And
parents from a different perspective as an adult to an adult versus a child that was starved and that needed attention. And I didn't get it from these parents.
yeah, and also to add on to that, you also got to understand that your parents, like some parents have not done their own healing as well. Like as a child, I know it's a double whammy for you, especially you coming from like a traumatic background and then them
Yeah.
passing on their own trauma onto you because they
Mhm.
have not done the healing that was needed. Yeah, that can be hard. So if you can, understand them in a way of being like, okay, yeah, because for me, the older I get, and even though my relationship with my parents is, not where it should be, I still like step back and I have empathy for them because of they've been through things themselves. Like, and then there's like, oh my gosh, there's times where I'm like, oh my gosh, they did the best that they could at the time, and with the tools and stuff that they have. So you got to like, have empathy in that way. And also another thing that you living with, whether, adults or children, I'm speaking to both,
Mhm.
living with your parents. And one of the hardest things for, How and I is, I think she talked about it, that there's going to be a disconnect because they're not your birth parents. They're
Mhm.
going to treat their children in ways where you wish you had. And it's not necessarily because they're doing it on purpose. No, it's just that maternal connection that you will never have. And
Yeah.
that's such a hard pill to swallow. It was a very hard pill for me, and I know how as well. Because
Yeah.
there was times I was jealous of my parents' biological children
Mhm.
because I wanted that. And to the point where I was like, why did the world give me this where I did not get to stay with my birth parents? Like I
Mhm.
wanted to stay with my birth parents. I wanted to have that connection. And so to understand that, and kind of learn how to swallow that, I think it's also going to help with building a better relationship with your parents as well, and not to expect the same treatment. Of course, they're supposed to treat you good no matter what. There's
Mhm.
just going to be
Yeah.
certain things they just can't help. They
Yeah.
just can't help it because it's just a biological connection. Just like how you haven't seen your birth parents in years. Like for me, there's a certain love that I have for my birth parents than I have for my adoptive parents.
Yeah.
And that's not to say I didn't love both. No, it's just a connection that you have.
And I also want to add something that's kind of like more like a real life example that happened to me actually very recently,
Mm-hmm.
which is and going back to like there's just some things that certain type of connections and experiences that birth
Mm-hmm.
parents experience with their birth children that you just could never experience with your biological or your birth your adoptive parents. And
Mm-hmm.
one of those experiences that happened actually happened this weekend, last weekend, and we're at like a family gathering, and this happens actually quite a bit. um, I always feel very left out and very kind of like sad when my parents or even family members start sharing stories of what like my siblings were like as children. I don't know if
Mm-hmm.
you've ever experienced this, but they'll be like, "Oh yeah, when you were a baby, you were like this, and oh my gosh, your mom couldn't get you to be quiet and all this," and they'll go on, and then like
Mm-hmm.
they'll go to my next sister and they'll be like, "Oh, but comparison to this sister," and then like I'm just left out, right? So I'm not even a
Yeah.
part of the story,
Mm-hmm.
and it it seems like a small minute detail, but
Mm-hmm.
when you're actually in that situation,
Mm-hmm.
you're with family, you want to be part of, you want people to laugh at your stories when you were a little baby. And
Mm-hmm.
I know like when my mom, my biological mom, when I went to Sierra Leone and she was telling me stories about like me when I was a baby. And I remember I was like, oh my God, I
Yeah.
love this. Like this is what I was
Yeah.
missing when my adoptive family was sharing stories. Like I didn't even know I was like this as a baby. And it's just like
Yeah.
it's small things like that where it's just not even possible for your adoptive parents to relate to you in that
Yeah.
way, but it's still gonna like make you
Yeah.
feel some type of way sometimes.
Yeah.
And
And
it's not something
yeah.
that they can help, you know?
And it's okay to feel that sadness too. It's okay to
Yeah,
feel those emotions because you're a human being. Don't push them aside. If you feel them, you feel them.
absolutely.
Let them stay until they go away. And then, of course, have some logic and reasoning behind that to kind of help you through that. But yeah, I
Absolutely.
completely understand. And so when it comes to like having conversations, whether you're living with your parents or you are an adult now, and you feel like your parents are not seeing you or understanding you, we suggest counseling, but not in the way of, oh, we just need counseling. You need counseling. It's a we. Approach your parents and be like, I feel like the best way for us to have a better relationship, because I feel like there's something that's missing, and I feel like we're not meeting halfway, and it's not your fault. It's not my fault. And I feel like we need some type of like mediation. So you're doing it in a way where you're not blaming your parents for stuff. And then you go to counseling. And even when you're in counseling, don't the blame game. Like, people just shut off, especially a lot of adopted parents who do have, like, look at me, I'm great. um
Mhm.
they shut down when they feel like you're shaming them, like my parents. When you feel like you're shaming them, you're telling them, making them feel like they're bad parents, it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard for you to get things across. So it's more like, we need to work on this together. Yes, you guys are doing great as parents and all that stuff. And I also think we can also do better in this. So approach it in a way of empathy and sympathy. And again, even if going through all of that and you just feel like they're not understanding you, they just might not want to understand it. They might not just, want to open up. And that's also like a hard pill to swallow as well. And that's what I wish my parents and I did, was like go to therapy together and talk about our feelings and stuff like that, which I think it would have brought us into a place of better understanding, me understanding them in their way, and then them understanding in my way.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And I think we missed one, which is, you know, I think Emily Famata has experienced this more,
Hmm.
and I know a lot of other adoptees have as well, which is you need to be willing to let go of your
Hmm.
parents if they're not willing to meet you halfway, understand you. And this is more
Hmm.
so as an adult, because obviously you can't do that
Hmm.
as a child, as a minor.
Yeah.
Um,
Mhm.
but as an adult, going back on the fact that, or what I was saying before, which is that your parents don't owe you anything as an adult.
Mhm.
Some parents, as adoptees, and even biological parents, after you turn 18,
Mhm.
they kind of start pushing you out, And
Yeah.
so you need to be willing as an adult to know your boundaries, just in
Mhm.
general, adopted or not.
Mhm.
Know your boundaries with your parents, with your siblings,
Mhm.
and find healing enough that you can find strength in yourself to be able to walk away if they continue to disrespect you. And
Mhm.
we're not talking about like small disrespect, like, oh, well, you know, I don't know, like,
Yeah,
I
I
don't
know.
know
Yeah.
examples, but
The
like,
big the big
regular stuff where it can be talked out or you guys can go to therapy, but it's like big disrespectful things and it's
Mhm.
continuous, or
Mhm.
they cuss you out or they yell at you or they just keep disrespecting you in front of
Mhm.
other people and they just continue to be arrogant and ignorant and all this isms, then you need to be okay to walk away and find
Mhm.
strength in yourself and in your healing and in God that you will be
Mhm.
able to be okay.
Mhm.
Because if you continue to stay in that relationship, you will just continue to hate yourself, your situation, and your parents. And the truth is, you have the power to create your own story. You know,
Yeah, and
you weren't, the beginning half of your story, as a teen, as a young child, unfortunately you didn't have any control over that, right? A lot of bad
Mhm.
things were done to you, but as an adult you have the power to reel it in
Mhm.
and really create the script that you want for your life. And you cannot put that responsibility on other people. You need to learn how to create boundaries for yourself so that you can feel loved, protected, and most importantly at peace with yourself. So
Yeah,
yeah,
that's completely beautifully well said. And understand that when you're going through this of cutting them off, it's going to be really painful. There's
yes,
times where you're going to feel alone in the world because, one, your birth parents gave you up. Now, the people who decided to take you in, now they've also abandoned you. It's a very, very painful thing. So let yourself feel all of the pains that come with it. Especially, I'm speaking from experience. I'm still like working on, not getting over, but learning how, because it's something you don't really get over, learning how to deal with it, learning how to move forward without this being such a, open wound, learning how to heal the wound, in that. And so know that one of the things that I struggled with was feeling like I'm not enough. And know that you may have some self esteem issues from it, where you have attachment issues because of it. It might come from that because you have been abandoned. And so relationships moving forward may be difficult for you, like they are for me. And we highly, highly suggest going to therapy, finding adopted, support groups. Like for us, we have a support group that we are going to be starting, for you to come and talk about your feelings and be around people that understand you, to help you heal. And also know that you can create communities and a family that's not, that you, of your own choosing, because at the end of the day, you didn't get to choose neither of your parents, really. So you get to choose now your friends. Like if you want to get married, or have relationships or any of that, you get to choose that. So heavily rely on that, to create that as your new family. Because and also another thing is, you may feel like, wow, I have done a lot of healing, I feel so much better. And
Yeah.
but then there's gonna be times where you're gonna get triggered like a motherfucker. Excuse my language. You're gonna get so triggered, and all those things that you thought you've healed, they're gonna get opened up. But they won't be as bad, as the triggers come along. You just learn, you will learn how to push through them quicker and better and more efficient. Um, but yeah, it's not an easy process. But know at the end, you feel good about yourself. Like with all my stuff that I've been with my parents, I feel good about myself. I feel better. My self-esteem is improving, is boosting, and I'm not blaming myself anymore as much as I used to. I have accepted the situation as it is. In the end, you'll be better. I promise you. You'll be better.
Yeah.
Mhm.
This is actually like really fun one for me, I think,
Mhm.
and one that actually creates a huge impact. And that's to do activities you love with your adoptive parents.
Mhm.
Invite them into your world and
Mhm.
let them know that you accept them fully as as your
Mhm.
parents. So that's
Mm.
like kind of two parts. The
Yeah.
first part is, I think as adoptive kids,
Mhm.
we're so used to meeting our parents where they're comfortable, go to
Mhm.
places that they feel comfortable, be
Mhm.
around people that they feel comfortable, especially if you're in transracial adoption and your parents are white, like, because that's
Yeah.
the predominant and deemed as a superior race in
Yeah.
America. Like, white people are so comfortable with their activities being the norm and their culture being the norm that other
Mhm.
cultures have to meet them where they're at. So things that they consider fun, you have to go and join that, right? I mean, we've even had people on our channel where they're like, oh, well, I wouldn't raise my child to be a black person, black child, because they're loud, they're this, they're that, they're this. So if someone has that mentality and there's a black party that's going on, they might not even want to go because they already have these assumptions about black people that's negative and disgusting. But the
Yeah.
party is actually really fun. It's the most
Mhm.
love you'll ever feel, like coming from people, because everyone has a spirit that's fun. They're loving and they want the best for each other. That's what black is. It's not loud. It's not ghetto. It's not all that disgusting stuff people like
Mhm.
to put out there. And so as an adoptee, I challenge us as a whole, even as adults,
Mhm.
to invite our parents to do activities that we find fun. Even if we think that we might get judged by our parents, we need
Mhm.
to get them in the habit of getting outside of their comfort zone. We need to force
Mhm.
them. You know what I mean? We keep telling them, but there's small things that we can do. Like if you want to go to a parade that's predominantly black, ask
Mhm.
them to come with you. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? Like you don't
Yep.
have to go to their local events or whatever and just like feel like the
Mhm.
outsider every single time.
Mhm.
If you want to partake in any kind of activity or event that you think is just outside of their norm, I think that's even better. You know what I mean? Even music, when you're in the
Mhm.
car, you might be used to listening to Taylor Swift's of the world or whatever, but you might like Afro beats or some K-pop or whatever, some Hispanic music. Play that stuff on the radio. It might
Mhm.
be awkward at first because they might make a couple of comments, but
Mhm.
I think there's also magic in that, because then it kind of puts a mirror in front of these people, these parents, if they have
Mhm.
some kind of ignorance around culture
Mhm.
and things that are outside of their comfort zone, outside of what they know.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and if you have parents who, you know, don't want to accept, don't let them deter you from continuously being being you, your culture, and loving that. Be feel free to play in the house just like everybody else plays music in the house. Play your music in the house. And if you want to create a certain meal and they don't want to, you create your meals in the house.
Yeah,
Be bold because it is your house too. Okay, it's
exactly.
your house. It is you're part of the family, aren't you? So make sure you stand firm in who you are and don't let them deter you in any of it.
And and the younger that you start doing that, the
Mhm.
more used to that they get as you
Mhm.
get older, versus you just
Mhm.
comply, 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 and then when you turn 17, you're like, oh, I'm gonna change things. They're gonna be like, wait a minute, we're
Mhm.
used to you coming and doing everything
Mhm.
the way we like. Why are you trying to stir things up? Why are you trying to cause? You're the bad child. You're
Mhm.
changing things up. You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
that's where it comes. Like, I think Famata experienced this a lot when she was complying and being all peaceful, and then she changed, and her mind just was like, no, I'm not going to do
Mhm.
everything you guys ask me. I'm not going to jump when you ask me to jump and
Mhm.
fly when you ask me to fly. I'm going to do things
Mhm.
my own way. Then it was like a whole stir in the pot, because they're just not used to that. And so
Mhm.
when you start that if you're a young child, you're
Mhm.
in your teens, we encourage you to do small little things. And of course, we're not saying it in a way of you to like create
Yeah.
any type of like um, trouble or anything in the household, but
Mhm.
you do it in a friendly way, because those are your parents,
Mhm.
like you invite them to want to partake in your culture. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
There's some part of them deep down that is somewhat interested in
Mhm.
different cultures, because why else would they adopt someone that's from a completely different culture? It just would not make sense to me. I don't know.
Are reasons why they would, but
I mean, I
there
know
are
there's
actual
some
reasons why,
like, yes,
other
I know
than
there's
wanting to be in
racism
your
and stuff
culture.
like that, but it's like if you hate Black people or Hispanic people so much, why would you want one in your house? You know what I mean? It's like, I know that there's cases where, yes, we've heard stories where some of them have them for slavery and all that kind of stuff, but I feel like that's not the majority of the cases and the stories. You know what I mean? And I think if the only way to combat like ignorance and racism is through exposure, because, you know, if myself, like for example, I went to like an Indian event with my boyfriend the other day. And at first I went, I was like kind of uncomfortable. I was like, whoa, there's a bunch of like Indians. I'm not used to being in a room with like just Indians. And so at first I was kind of uncomfortable, because I was like, I'm so used to like blending in and wanting to blend in, and I completely stand out. And but I just like kind of allowed myself to relax and be in the moment with my boyfriend when we were dancing, and like I was enjoying it. I didn't understand anything they were saying, the music that they were playing, but it was
Mhm.
fun. And definitely not something I would just like on a Saturday be like, oh, let's go to this Indian festival. But like I ended up being there and it was fun. And I think your
Mhm.
parents, like for the most part, if you expose them and you're friendly about it and you're nice about it, I think they'll be open. So
Mhm.
allow them to be a part of your world.
Mhm. And also one thing that I want to add, when I was younger, there was times where my parents did like um try to expose me to my culture, but because I didn't really truly, I didn't understand racism at all, being around Black people, I just kind of wanted to fit in. There's times where I pushed against them trying to expose me to my culture. So I can take responsibility in that. So if you are a parent where you are trying to like help your kid like push them into their own culture and they're resisting it, don't stop because they're going to appreciate you later. Keep doing it because
Exactly.
with my parents, they're like, oh, well, she doesn't want to be involved. So they just stopped. And, I was a kid and it's like, don't stop. Be like, no, this is a part of who you are. You are going to accept this. This is
But
who you are.
also,
Keep,
I felt that way too when I was
yeah.
younger. And I feel like part of the reason is because my parents, they put me sometimes in some of the most extremes of situations. Like they wanted me to be around Black kids. So they put me, I know there was like multiple reasons why they put me in this school, but like it was like in this ghetto school with kids that
Mm,
were like just not well behaved. And,
Mm.
it was just ghetto. Like one of the kids' parents used to come in and whip him with the broom that she would find in the classroom, just really
Oh
wretched
no.
things. But
Not to that. Yeah, okay, there have
but you
some
know what I mean?
boundaries.
Like they'll
Make
do
sure your
some
kids are
extreme
safe.
things because
Yeah, not extreme.
they don't
Yeah.
know the middle ground. You know what I mean? Or they'll be like, "Oh, we want to connect you to Africa," so they'll do some crazy thing that they think is Africa, which is like Africa from 14 BC or whatever. And it's like, no, there's modern day African music and food and kids who are
Mhm,
in America that are African that are kind of like,
mhm.
um, have mingled with American culture. So, so there's like middle ground. Don't just go for the extreme of everything. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like, because
just
then,
yeah,
kids, if they're Americanized, they want to do other things that American kids are doing. So you got to find the middle ground.
yeah. Like, what are the black kids
Because
are
I was
doing?
embarrassed. I was embarrassed
They,
when my mom wanted me to go to all these like drum circles and all these things that they thought of
yeah,
like African. I'm like,
yeah.
there's
You don't have to
multiple,
just. It can be just as simple as you just playing African music in the house, or learning
exactly.
how to make a dish, and you just be like, you know what, today we are going to cook this from your country because and still make it and try it and eat it. Have the family eat it. They need to also learn how to like the food too, because just how your kid who doesn't look like you has learned to like white food or Asian food. If you're Asian and you're adopted, kid doesn't look like you. Have them enjoy it too. You know what I mean? Make
Yeah,
it part of your just simple stuff. It does not have to be like have black books, have certain books in your house. You know what I mean? Just like how you as a parent you would have
representation.
stuff for your white child to feel part of their culture. Just do the same thing with your black children. Does not have to be extreme. And
And
so
also, if you're gonna make the food, please like pretend to enjoy that stuff because
like I
I
like I
know
said, keep making it until you like it, because your
exactly
child
because
has to like
it's
your
so
food.
discouraging. Like when I was younger and like I would have African food and I would go to like I would bring it to school and like the kids would be like, what is that smell? It smells like, poop or whatever, like some ignorant ass comments. And
Mhm.
like even sometimes the parents would be like, oh my God, this is interesting. They'll just like be making all these commentaries that's like not supportive. As a child, you already feel left out. And now your parent is making food that's from your hometown and it's considered as disgusting and smelly and hard to cook.
Mhm.
Leave all the negative comments out. And this is beyond just cooking, even just activities that you go out and do with your children. If you have any negative things to say, just keep it to yourself. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Obviously, keep your kids safe, but keep the negative comments to yourself. You want to create a supportive environment for your child to feel like, oh, this is actually cool and it's actually fun. It's not something that's like weird or so strange. Yeah.
Yeah, and like how I said, it's not just parents that show up to the kids' activity. Take the entire family. The
Yeah.
entire family needs to be there too to understand that that child that doesn't look like you, because again, they've been in your environment, understanding your
Yeah.
culture and everything. So it's time you be like, no, we want to understand them too. That's it. It really is. That's it. And so, and the last thing that we're going to discuss in this video is don't be afraid to push boundaries with your adoptive parents. And how I'm going to let you take over this one because I know you have more to say about this.
This is going to be a controversial one. Okay, so yeah, so I felt like this was important to write down, which is as a child, um, I don't think you should be afraid to feel like you can push boundaries with your children, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
with your parents,
Mm-hmm.
biological or birth parents. As a child, you are learning, you are making mistakes, you are, putting your hand in fire, but you learn from those experiences. And a
Yeah.
biological child doesn't have in their back of their mind, oh, if I push this boundary, my parents are going to give me away. No, it's if I push this boundary, I'm going to get a little consequence. I might not be able to watch TV for 30 minutes. But as a adoptive child, because you were neglected, you were given up by your biological parents, you have a subconscious that tells you, I have to be a perfect child. I cannot
Yeah.
make mistakes. I have to be the A student. I
Mm-hmm.
have to be the one that does better than my siblings because my siblings are against me and I just feel alone in this. So I have to do everything I can to overcompensate. And so I challenge the children, the
Mm-hmm.
teens, and even adults who are forming relationship with their adoptive parents, that it's okay for us to push boundaries. Relationships, they do have boundaries. Sometimes they can be pushed, but you learn trust by, you know, pushing a little bit, taking a little bit, giving a little bit. And obviously, there's cases where children are given up, right? We're not saying for you to go out and be a destructive child or
Hmm.
to be disrespectful. But
Hmm.
I know I have a lot of white friends in middle school and high school who would, when they're talking to their parents, they don't even call their parents by mom and dad. They call them by their first name. They cuss at their parents when they're speaking to their parents. Like, why the F
Yeah,
would you
like
do that, Tina? Or why the F would you do that,
yeah,
Kelly, or whatever? And their mom would be like, oh my gosh, calm down. It's okay. You know, they would just,
yeah. Oh my
and they
gosh.
wouldn't have that feeling of my mom is going to give me up. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like, so I encourage us to push the waters a little bit. Of course, there's going to be some consequences, but that's part of just a dynamic between the parent. The parent will always be the parent. The child should just be the child to learn, to grow. Because at the end of the day, most of the times, a lot of times, kids who are really, really rotten and like kind of spoiled, life gives it to them, and a lot of them learn. You know what I mean? Like, I've had so many kids, those same kids who I'm telling you about, who cuss out their parents when they're little kids, who are just slap other people, just act crazy and spoiled. To this day, they grow up and they're like, they've blossomed. You're like, whoa, that's the same child. They're so responsible. They're like doing big things in this life. Part of it is because, yes, there's part of it is privilege, but part of it is also they have been fostered an environment where they can do as they
they could
want.
be an open, be open.
They
Yeah,
can be
and
open. Life does have some consequences, but you test life a little bit. You know what I mean? So again, I'm not saying this to go out and start cussing at your parents. Please don't say how I said I can call my mom a B word. Please don't say that. You
yeah,
can't just go out and do disrespectful things, but be okay with making mistakes at the end of the day and pushing some of the boundaries. And parents as well, this goes to you. Give your adoptive kids a little bit of space, even more space, to push a little bit of boundaries, test waters a little bit more, because when they're coming into your household, part of trust is testing you. Can I test you? Are you going to always be there? If I mess up, if I make this mistake, are you going to be there? Or are you going to just give me away? And so a child that's been neglected and given away, you want to give them a little bit extra room and space to mess up a little bit more than your birth children, because your birth children already know they're going to be on your will anyways. You know what I mean? More than likely, like, you can't just get rid of them. That's not how, you know, works. America doesn't work like that. You know what I mean? So, um, yeah,
yeah. And to close out, perfectly well said. You put it so well. To close out, yeah. There's times, growing up, there was just certain things I could not say, talk to my parents a certain way because the treatment was different for me. Like where the youngest brother, he's their biological son. Oh, he could talk to them however he wants to in joking way, use their names.
yeah,
Me on the other hand,
yeah,
don't do that. So
exactly, exactly.
it's about fostering and just treating your children the same across the board when it comes to that stuff, because it's like it's unfair, and it's making your child it's going to make your child feel like they don't belong. It's going to further, because they already feel like they don't belong. I mean, come on, look at
Yeah,
them. So
yeah,
for you to continuously just do it like that, and then you just let one child get away with certain things and then the other child not, is a little weird, but perfectly said. And if you guys, want to add to this conversation in the comments and you want to add your story, we would love to hear that. We'd love to hear your stories, because at the end of the day, this channel is for adoptees and adoptive parents. We don't want to be sitting here and talking all the time. We want to hear your perspective and your side. And again, thank you so much for tuning into another episode. Don't forget to share, like, subscribe, and let anyone know about us, because we would love the subscribers and y'all being part of this journey.
Mhm.
And thank you. So we'll see you next time.
All right, bye
Bye.
guys.